Fascinating day there with Debbie Rowe, but in the end, was a picture built that helps AEG in the sense of Jackson's clear long-time use of propofol and all these doctors, not just Conrad Murray, queuing up to supply it for him?
I think it helped Katherine Jackson and Michael's children, Pierce. Remember, both sides are trying to prove that Michael had an addiction to painkillers and prescription medications. The plaintiffs, Katherine and Michael's kids, are trying to say that AEG knew of this because one of their executives was his tour manager twice during the 90s and actually hired an addiction specialist to help him after he became addicted following the Pepsi commercial. The defense is claiming that he was addicted to prescription medications because they want to show two things. They want to say he was responsible for his own demise, and number two, if they're held liable, they want to keep the damages low. They want to say that addiction to painkillers and medication lowered the value of his career, lowered whatever expectations there were about what he could earn. So they're both trying to prove he was addicted. I think she helped Katherine and Michael's children. I think what she described is something that AEG, in my opinion, had to know about because of their constant involvement with Michael Jackson, particularly that executive who was his tour manager on 2 tours. So I think AEG is going to be hard-pressed to say we never heard this was going on, we knew nothing about it, it's news to us, particularly when they said they had investigated Conrad Murray to see if he was suitable and then changed their position, said we said that but we really didn't do it.
But if Conrad Murray is simply the latest in a long line of doctors who've been happy to supply the propofol to Michael Jackson, and in the end we're talking about a 50-year-old man here, not a young teenager in Michael Jackson, somebody who clearly was very in charge of his life in many ways, if he was just using Conrad Murray as he had many other doctors to give him what he wanted, does that not in a way help AEG's case too?
Well, but that's not what I think happened. I think what AEG did was they were willing to take big risks to get big returns. They knew they could make a fortune if Michael Jackson's comeback was successful. And what I think they mistakenly did, looking backward, is they agreed to take responsibility for Conrad Murray. They agreed to pay him $150,000 a month. They sent him an agreement to sign where they talked about the obligations they would have with respect to him. And they sent emails just reminding everyone who was paying Conrad Murray and suggesting that they were putting pressure on Conrad Murray to make him perform. So I think the problem is that they took some risks, including taking responsibility for Murray as a price to pay for getting him on a comeback plan that would have been the biggest entertainment comeback in history.
When you hear the family talk about that, not entirely surprising, but certainly a familiar pattern, from Michael's father to his mother to the siblings, all repeating this same pattern about how they believed all these people were around Michael, forcing him against his health, really, to do this tour. How significant will any of that be when this trial starts?
It could be very significant. Apparently there are emails from his choreographer, Ken Ortega, warning AEG that he's not well. He has serious physical problems, serious psychological and emotional problems. He's asking for professional help. And I'm informed that there are some emails from AEG basically telling Murray, you better get him to rehearsals. So I think this issue is well-founded by the siblings, and I think it's going to be a big issue for the plaintiffs, and I think AEG is going to have a tough time explaining it.
AEG's lawyer, Marvin Putnam, said it was the 2005 child molestation trial, which you were obviously involved with, that caused Michael to dramatically increase his drug use. Do you think there's any truth in that?
I really don't. Now, I was his lead criminal defense counsel in that trial. I talked to him throughout the trial. He was lucid, he was articulate, he was cooperative. I never had a problem working with Michael. My co-counsel, Susan, you and I both thought he was one of the nicest clients we ever represented. And I did not see drug use as a problem during the trial. Now, the verdict day, he didn't look well. I will say that. He'd been through over 5 months of trial, all the stress and strain. We were in court 5 days a week. And I do think that he suffered physically and emotionally during the trial, but I never saw him take a prescription drug. It would not have been unusual if he had, because people in situations like that are sleep deprived, they're depressed, they have anxiety. If he did take something, it would not have surprised me and it would not have been abnormal. But he never was a problem for us when it came to talking to him, getting information from him, telling him what was going on. He was a delightful client to represent.
There's one of the emails that you alluded to is from AEG Live CEO or co-CEO Paul Gongaware, which says, we want to remind Murray that it's AEG, not MJ, who is paying his salary. We want to remind him what is expected of him. Quite explicit, really, there, you would think, in terms of who's responsible. I suppose on the flip side, Michael Jackson was a very well-known, highly temperamental pop superstar, prone to cancelling concerts, having a variety of health issues of various types of severity, unpredictable, all those things, like many pop artists. Could that work against the family's claim in the sense that AEG may say, look, yeah, we did try and get him to work, but he was a bit flaky?
Well, if they thought he was that flaky and they thought he was that disturbed, why did they enter into a contract with him to do all these concerts? They invested over $30 million before the concerts even began. If they thought he was that bad and they thought his reputation was suffering from all these other issues, why in the world did they go into business with him? I think it's an uphill battle for AEG.
They show that this is a troubled entertainer. This is someone who for 10 years had been taking propofol, who couldn't sleep, who if they paint this picture that with or without AEG, he was going down this road where his life was at an end, could that help their case?
I don't think so, because the jury is going to be asking themselves, if he was so bad and so damaged, so tarnished, so troubled, why did they enter into a contract with him? Why did they invest over $30 million in him before the tours even began? It's a contradictory situation that they're in. The more they attack him, the more people are going to say, then why were you doing business with him? It's a problematic issue for them.
It certainly is, and shows some ugly stuff, could have so many different meanings. A cornerstone of the Jackson case is an email that AEG Live co-CEO Paul Gongaware wrote 11 days before his death. I want to read it to you. It says, quote, "We want to remind Murray that it is AEG, not MJ, who is paying his salary. We want to remind him what is expected of him." Again, that's from June 14th, 2009. How important is communication like that going to be to this case?
It's critical, because AEG is claiming that they were in negotiations to hire Murray but never really did. However, their lawyer drafted an agreement, sent it to Murray. Murray signed it and sent it back. And they're claiming that because Michael died the next day and they never actually signed the document, they shouldn't be bound. But under California law, you don't need a written agreement signed by all sides to have a contract. And those emails suggest that they knew they were employing him and they were trying to direct him as an employer directs an employee. These technical arguments, again, may backfire.
Let's talk about the A-list of celebrities, how that might affect the case if they have to take the stand, and affect the jury. I mean, firsthand, about the high profile of this, of Michael Jackson, and of course of a trial surrounding his life. So Diana Ross, Spike Lee, how does that play here?
Well, along with the emotional appeal to the jury, these celebrities are going to show just what his life was worth. This was the best-known celebrity in the world. He was a musical genius, an artist, a dancer, a singer, a choreographer, beyond comparison. And as they take the stand and testify to just how brilliant this man was, the dollar value of his lost life, remember he only died at 50, his parents are both in their 80s, the dollar value of what his life was worth is going to increase in the jury's mind, I believe.